February 4, 1874, Kumasi, Ashanti capital, deep in the wet green teeth of the Gold Coast jungle. The morning presses down like a wet cloth. Major General Sir Garnet Wolseley rides at the head of a column that smells of sweat and gun oil, his dark cloak plastered to an iron frame of metals across his chest. Around him, the ridged tartan of the 42nd Black Watch flickers in the dim light. On his flank, companies of the Royal Welch Fusiliers and the Rifle Brigade move with a brittle, leopard-skin precision. The men sling Martini Henry rifles and cartridge pouches. Sappers of the Royal Engineers carry picks, saws and coils of wire to hack a road through a country that resists formation and order. Hausa and Yoruba levies, local guides and auxiliaries, thread the flanks, their sandals whispering on packed leaf litter. Redvers Buller, a slim, hawk-faced lieutenant colonel from the Wolseley ring, rides a few paces back, wiping rain from his mustache and checking a rough map that has the word Kumasi scrawled on it like a secret. They have pushed for 3 days along a newly chiseled track, the Royal Engineers' work of months, still steaming at the joints. The road is a raw incision through plantain and mahogany, rain turning the ruts to chocolate mud. Steam fogs the officers' hoarse breath. The low Milky Way of smoke from distant cooking fires hangs like a promise. Then the jungle gives up a hollow, and the column pours out into a bowl of open air. Before them, not a hut village halting at the tree line, but a city. Towers and walls rise out of the greenery, plastered and whitewashed, flat-roofed stone houses banded with carved friezes. Flags, the Ashanti red, black and white Kente standards, ripple from poles. A courtly sprawl of houses surrounds one hulking complex, the Aben, the stone palace, squatting up from terraces as if to compete with the sky. The palace's crenellations catch the gray sun like dull metal. For a moment the officers fall into a private stunned silence, the practical disbelief that comes when maps turn into something you did not expect. Wolseley looks through a spyglass. The field glass trembles in his glove. He is not the only man to be unmoored. The sergeant behind him fiddles with a priming cap as if to reassure his fingers that they still know their work. The men file forward, bayonets fixed, but their steps slacken at the sight. Carved pillars with spirals, and biblical scenes, stout plastered walls, and a here and there, panels inlaid with beaten gold and copper. At one gate 3 Ashanti elders stand, their faces lacquered with earth and oiled grease, robes embroidered with small bells. They make no sudden move. The city is not deserted, but its people have retreated into the woven alleys and shaded verandas. A few children watch from behind pillars, eyes like black beads. The first British party to get close is a small scouting party, a captain, 2 lieutenants, 30 men from the West India Regiment, and a handful of local guides. They mount the low stone steps of a public hall to speak with a court official. The hall smells of smoke and palm oil, and the air inside is cool as a cellar. On a waist-high table lie objects that glint like fish, coiled gold armlets, calabashes rimmed in beaten gold, thin, long canes of ivory engraved and sheathed in silver. A private from the Black Watch whispers to his mate that he has never seen so much metal outside a King's storybook. They pass a small carved stool, tiny heavy lacquered with gold, and the lieutenant curious reaches to touch it. An elderly man in a kente robe lays a hand on the lieutenant's wrist and is gentle but firm. Not this. The stool is not for strangers. The command, the unspoken code thickens the air. Even victorious men feel the weight of protocol. In officers' journals later, phrases will appear. A thing of splendor. Palaces and parapets, rows of books in many languages, but in the moment there are only the hard precise catalogues of the living. The plaster that is cool under the palm, the carved lintels that show intertwined animals and human figures, the smell of roasted plantain and damp earth, the way the sun and shade make the gold so violent to the eye. Wolseley dismounts and walks up the palace steps. His boots press into a stone floor that is puckered with time. His gloved fingers trail a wooden jamb, feeling under his fingertips the faint ridges of polish where hands have passed for generations. He orders a careful search of the royal rooms. An officer from the staff, a captain with a pencil hatchet of a face, opens a wooden chest and finds inside the decanters of a king's household, silver bowls, tangled necklaces of heavy gold dust, delicate cups, objects that do not so much glitter as insist. The sergeant who lifts the lid winces at a smell of old perfume and metal. They unroll cloths and find woven belts with leopard skin, pipes capped in silver, and small books bound in leather. Wolseley notes the books and pauses, volumes bound and stamped, stacked like the residue of a cabinet rather than the ash of bushcraft. He touches the spine of one, and the pages crackle with the dry hush of knowledge kept. Around midday, the first smoke begins to eddy through the alleys, not the ordered columnar smoke of a campfire, but patches of gray where small houses are being torched. Wolseley has seen how war works in this theater. Clear the villages that threaten supply lines, show force in the language that people who built empires understand. He's a commander who measures effect as well as presence. Orders go down the line, prize agents to examine the most valuable material. Sappers to set charges on the palace foundation, if it must be destroyed, troops to secure the perimeter. The mood among the men is a mixture of weary discipline and greedy curiosity. Voices, low and intent, pass around descriptions of a city of gold, a story the British mind has been inclined to assign to myth until it stands now, palpably, in front of them. For the Ashanti who watch from behind patterned curtains, there is shock and sorrow braided with a fierce, ancient confidence. This is their court, their families file quietly, gathering what can be carried. The drums that punctuated festivals are silent now, as if the city itself listens to what the British will do next. The drama is not yet resolved. Men are still cataloguing, weighing, opening, and the sun is yet to fall. Wolseley paces with the measured impatience of a strategist who knows the optics of victory must be decisive. He asks for lists, for valuations. The jungle presses close in the sound of insects. Somewhere a cock crows. The palace's thick walls stand as if to say that the Ashanti have been here long and that their city full of gold and order did not spring from primitive hands, but from a people with history's law and craft. Facts will later be written into dispatches and newspapers that Wolseley's force entered Kumasi on the 4th of February 1874, that the palace and many treasures were seized and later auctioned, that the British dynamited parts of the royal compound in the days after occupation, but for now the men move in the immediate present, cataloguing, tasting, deciding. The sight of gold in the jungle collapses the short arrogant assumptions some officers had carried out of London and onto the road. There is no place in the field to hide disbelief when a city answers with its own architecture and bureaucracy. The air in Kumasi thickens with the smell of rain-soaked smoke and gunpowder, but beneath it lingers something older, a scent of palm oil, wood polish, and incense that clings to the carved eaves. British boots echo down corridors meant for silk sandals. Lanterns flicker on walls studded with gold medallions. And every surface, from doorframe to drummy, hums with craftsmanship that makes the European officers uneasy. Captain J.E. Cameron pauses in front of a vast wooden door carved with the entwined forms of crocodiles, sharing a single stomach, a royal emblem of unity. His interpreter whispers, "Funtun Fun Fu Denkiam Fun Fu." Two heads, one body, they fight, but they live together. The captain tilts his head, suddenly conscious that this is not ornamentation, but philosophy cast into art. He jots the translation in his notebook as thunder rolls outside, and the idea lingers that these people carved political wisdom into the very wood of their homes. Through the open courtyards, soldiers watch golden ornaments glinting in the rain. Some still hang untouched on the pillars of shrines, beaten gold masks, bells, and sacred stools suspended in silence. Others have been hastily hidden, half buried under clay floors, locked behind reed walls. But what astonishes even the most cynical officers is not the sheer quantity of gold, it is how the city breathes with organization. The avenues are wide, swept clean, bordered by gutters that feed into stone drains. Traders' stalls line the roads in perfect symmetry, dyers, weavers, smiths, and gold beaters, each with a section assigned by guild and lineage. Officers from the Royal Engineers, men trained to survey and calculate, admit grudgingly that the city's layout is methodical, planned, not grown wild like a market town. Kumasi's heart, the royal precinct, is not chaos, it's administration. In one open hall, clerks sit behind low desks made of native cedar, their fingers stained with ink from record-keeping. British soldiers, curious, pick up bundles of Nkro leaves covered in neat Adinkra symbols and Arabic script. These are contracts, tax records, and trade accounts, ledgers written long before any British customs officer had ever thought to step inland. Captain John Glover, observing the process, notes quietly to Wolseley, "They keep accounts like London merchants." Nearby, the sound of drumming breaks out, low and deliberate. It is not the chaotic beat the British expect, but a language. The interpreter murmurs again, "They are calling the ancestors." announcing strangers in the capital. From balconies above, elders wrapped in patterned kente cloth observe in silence, neither defiant nor submissive, simply watching. Behind them, the royal regalia lies shrouded in gold-threaded cloth, swords with hilts of pure gold, shields polished to mirror brightness, and the legendary golden stool itself, the soul of the Ashanti nation, hidden somewhere beyond sight. It is said to have descended from the heavens, carrying the spirit of all Ashanti. No one dares show it to outsiders. When Wolseley, as adjutant, tries to question a senior court official, a tall man with kente draped diagonally across one shoulder, the official replies in careful, accented English, "We ruled these forests long before the sea brought your ships. You have iron, we have gold, but both are power." His eyes are steady, not pleading. The officers exchange looks. This is no tribal chieftain begging for terms, but a man representing a sophisticated monarchy. Later, in the burning light of afternoon, the troops are granted a wider view of Kumasi from a rise outside the palace. Beyond the stone courtyards, the city stretches in measured rings, market districts, artisans' quarters, barracks for royal guards, and outer compounds surrounded by thick earthen walls. Palm groves mark the edges where streams feed the plantations. From above, it looks less like a settlement and more like a capital designed with intent, a center of law and wealth carved into the green labyrinth of the jungle. One lieutenant, writing home, will confess, "We came expecting huts, barbarism, and superstition. Instead, we found an empire with an administration not unlike our own, and with more gold than any treasury I've seen." But the admiration carries unease to the soldiers of Queen Victoria's army. This discovery threatens the story that justifies their march, the idea that they are bringing civilization to savages. Standing in Kumasi, that narrative trembles. Night falls heavy and slow, the rain eases. Fires crackle where the soldiers camp in the courtyards, and the city's shadows pulse with unseen eyes. Somewhere deep inside the palace complex, Ashanti priests chant before a sealed door, invoking the spirits of kings past. They know the foreigners will not stay forever. Empires come and go, but gold, they whisper, remembers. Wolseley watches from a balcony, his face drawn tight, the glow of his cigar tracing brief orange lines in the dark. He mutters to Buller, "The papers will never believe half of what we've seen." And he's right. When word reaches London, the reports will speak of loot, punishment, and glory. They will not say that the British Army walked into a golden city, one that proved Africa was already civilized long before Europe arrived to measure it. February 5, 1874, dawn seeps through a low ceiling of smoke. The British soldiers wake to a muffled silence, broken only by the drip of water from smoldering roofs. The rains have paused, but the jungle still hisses with steam. In the courtyards of Kumasi, ashes swirl around boots and broken pillars, the debris of a civilization misunderstood. Major General Wolseley stands in the doorway of what was once the Royal Audience Hall, his uniform streaked with soot, his gloves blackened. The orders have been clear since the previous night: the palace must be destroyed. It is not enough to occupy. The empire demands spectacle, proof that the Ashanti power has been broken. He watches as sappers of the Royal Engineers carry kegs of gunpowder into the hall. The men move slowly, uneasily. Even the most hardened among them cannot shake the sense that they are dismantling something sacred. The walls are covered in murals, warriors, kings, and mothers carved into relief, their faces alive in the flicker of lanterns. Gold leaf shimmers beneath soot, clinging stubbornly to the plaster. "Light it," Wolseley orders. His voice is steady, but something in it sounds like fatigue rather than triumph. A dull crack echoes, then a roar, the ground shudders. Smoke blooms upward like a living thing, curling into the gray sky. The Aben, the great stone palace of the Ashanti, collapses inward, its timbers splintering with a long, slow groan. Flames leap from one compound to the next, chasing the dry thatch. Soldiers shield their faces as a gust of hot wind carries sparks into the jungle fringe. When the smoke clears, Kumasi looks like a ghost of itself, the golden city reduced to ruins. But even in destruction, beauty clings to it. Fragments of gold ornaments glint in the ash. Charred statues stand half-buried yet defiant. Captain Cameron lowers his rifle and mutters, "They built this out of pride and patience." And he stops himself. Pride is dangerous talk in a campaign report. Behind him, an interpreter kneels in the dirt, gathering scraps of burned parchment from the royal archives, fragments of trade records, laws, and family trees, written in elegant ink that the fire couldn't quite erase. The interpreter wraps them carefully in cloth, murmuring, "They will write new ones." Outside the city, Ashanti survivors gather at the edges of the forest. Women cradle children wrapped in bright cloth, faded by smoke. Elders stand with carved walking sticks, watching their capital smolder. They say little, the drums are silent still, but every face holds an unbroken calm. Defeat here is not the end of their story, it is only another stanza in a long war song. By mid-afternoon, the British soldiers begin their withdrawal. Mule carts rattle with crates of seized treasures, gold dust, regalia, carved stools, jewelry, ceremonial swords. One chest, marked for the Admiralty, contains the golden head of a royal effigy. The quartermaster jots an inventory beside it, his pen scratching over the word loot. But the looting feels hollow. Some soldiers, especially those who had seen the order and harmony of Kumasi before the fires, march with eyes downcast. They know they have witnessed something grander than the campaign dispatches will ever admit. Wolseley, riding at the front, senses it too. He looks back one last time. The air behind him flickers gold and black, smoke rising from the heart of a civilization. He has done his duty, as empire demands, but he will carry the image of this burning city for the rest of his life. When news reaches London months later, the Illustrated London News prints engravings of the punishment of Kumasi. The headlines hail British victory, discipline, and honor. They call Kumasi a den of superstition, omitting the drains, the clerks, the architecture, the art. The reality is too dangerous. It challenges the myth of the civilizing mission. Yet among the officers who were there, private letters tell another story. Lieutenant Henry Brackenbury writes home, "If the Ashantis are savages, then civilization is not what I thought it was. Their court had etiquette, and their craftsmen more skill than many in Europe. We burn not a village, but a kingdom." As the last columns disappear into the jungle, the Ashanti re-emerge from the forest shadows. They begin to dig, rebuild, and pray. Priests pour libations on the ashes, calling on the spirits of the golden stool to guide their people once more. Within a generation, Kumasi will rise again, rebuilt, re-gilded, and reclaimed. The British will return to find not ruins, but renewal, the phoenix heart of an empire that refuses to die. And long after Wolseley's campaign is forgotten, the legend of Kumasi, the city of gold, will outlive the empire that tried to erase it. The jungle remembers, the gold remembers, and so does history. If you found this story of the Ashanti Empire's city of gold compelling, subscribe and stay tuned for more untold histories where myth meets power and the past refuses to stay silent.